We're going to start back at the beginning of how they met. One day as Jesus was preaching on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, great crowds pressed in on him to listen to the word of God. He noticed 2 empty boats at the water's edge, for the fishermen had left them and were washing their nets. Stepping into one of the boats, Jesus asked Simon, its owner, to push it out into the water. So he sat in the boat and taught the crowds from there. Typically, the crowd would stand up and the teacher would sit down in the culture. So Jesus is sitting down in a boat, and the acoustics from the water and the surrounding hillsides, the crowds could hear him, and they weren't pressing up against Jesus. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Now go out where it is deeper and let down your nets to catch some fish." And Simon Peter, is trying to be respectful of the rabbi. He didn't mean to go to church that day. Church came to him. So he listened. Being respectful, he said, "Master, sir, we worked hard all last night and didn't catch a thing. But if you say so, I'll let the nets down again." It's respect. You don't disrespect Grandpa, if at all possible, right? Okay, we're tired. You met us cleaning our nets. We went fishing all night. We didn't catch anything. We cleaned up the nets. We're going to go home and sleep. We're going to try it again tomorrow night. And Jesus said, "No, go out a little further. Get your nets dirty again." Oh, okay. And then look at this. At this time, their nets were so full of fish, they began to what? Tear. They were just out there. These are professional fisher people. They know how to fish. The minister doesn't know anything about fishing. He knows how to eat fish. And he said, "Go back out. Your nets will be full." Well, this got their attention. When Simon Peter realized what had happened, he fell to his knees before Jesus and said, "Oh, Lord, please leave me. I'm too much of a sinner to be around you." Remember, he didn't mean to go to church that morning. Church came to him. His partners, James and John wrote the book of John that we read last week for Easter. The sons of Zebedee were also amazed because we were fishing. We couldn't catch anything. And now the minister, tells us to fish again, and now we can catch fish. Jesus replied to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you'll be fishing for people." And as soon as they landed, they left everything and followed Jesus. You have to understand that sometimes we ministers talk about this when we're going for a big volunteer push. Look what they did. They left everything to follow Jesus. What are you leaving to follow Jesus? It's not what we're doing. I learned years ago as a minister, long before I got to Tucson, don't do a volunteer push from the front, because then you have people coming and volunteering that are wholly inappropriate for whatever it is you just asked them to volunteer for. I need for you to volunteer. I want to volunteer. Well, not you. It's a tough conversation. So we'll come and tap you on the shoulder. There's a job for everyone. There's not everyone for every job. Can I get an amen? Because there's a lot of kids behind the locked doors, for instance. We hand select who's back there. I notice I don't ever get asked. I also, as someone pointed out this morning, never get asked to sing, but it's a bit of bitterness I'm working on. They left Jesus and followed Jesus because he was a rabbi, and the highest calling was to be a rabbi, and you got invited into being a rabbi. I wanted to play college baseball, but there's a whole talent requirement thing that I didn't have. So I went to the one place that was willing to let me play. But if other places had been willing to let me play, I wouldn't have gone to where I've gone. I would have had a selection. I would have gone to a variety of places. It's being invited in to be a rabbi. And Jesus just said, "Follow the rabbi." Well, that's what you want to do. And you notice something that we just witnessed. There's a way that you can help people change. In your marriage, with your children, with your parents, at work, you want to change somebody. There's a process Jesus just walked us through. So the first thing that we have to do learning from Jesus, if we're going to help someone adjust their behavior, their actions, expectations, is first you have to show respect. When Jesus got into Peter's boat, it's an odd sign of respect. But he's a fisherman, and he kind of smells. He's been working all night. The minister could have not gone near him. Why don't we move away from these gentlemen with their nets? Well, that's not necessarily disrespectful, but it's not full of respect. In fact, Jesus did the other thing. He walked towards them, got in the boat. There was an acceptance. So he respected Peter as a human being who had value. And then he understood that for Peter, The world turned on catching fish. You catch fish, it's a good day. You don't catch fish, it's a bad day. You have those, I have those. What makes it a good day and a bad day? So we understood well how Peter's life was based. If you asked Peter, what's the most important thing in your life? He would not have said fish. He would have said God. But what he really meant was fish. I will be checking as soon as the sermon is over to see how the Yankees are doing. Or I could just look at Kyle, because he'll be doing that during the sermon. And there's, as much as I would like for my time with my small children to be what really makes me happy, I do enjoy them. But I get to see them every day. The Yankees winning is a much more rare event. For Peter, it was fish. And Jesus ratified, he understood the belief. Do you know how you do this with your kids? You have to understand you have to be respectful, and you have to understand that what they're talking about. We have small children, and they get along great most of the time, but when they don't get along, the challenge is to find the root of the problem. To understand. To be in their shoes. To understand what their world is. What's most important is the pink crayon. That's what's most important. Well, I think what's most important is not stabbing your brother. But for the 4-year-old, it's the pink crayon, and she'll do whatever it takes to keep possession of the pink crayon. And the only reason the 8-year-old wants the pink crayon is because the sister already has it. And in his mind, she has wronged him, and he needs to get her back. You have to enter into the belief system of somebody else. And then and only then can you challenge him. So Peter thought the most important thing was catching fish. So Jesus said, you want to catch fish? Let's catch fish. My nets are tearing. That's a lot of fish. Catching fish isn't what life is about, Peter. You know what life is about? Let's change the world through people. So you have to show respect. You have to understand their belief system. And only then can you challenge them. Peter, I got something better for you than fish. Oh, we can catch fish. Later on, they owe the temple tax. They don't have money for the temple tax. Peter says to Jesus, what are we going to do? And Jesus says, Peter, go catch a fish. And in the mouth of the fish, there will be 2 coins, one for your temple tax and one for my temple tax. Because Peter really thinks the world only works when you're catching fish. So he goes and catches a fish, and there's 2 coins, and he pays Jesus' temple tax and Peter's temple tax. And only then does Jesus say, let's go change the world by fishing for people. And Matthew joined in later. Matthew was there as an eyewitness. He wrote this, now I say to you that you are Peter, is what Jesus said, which means rock. And upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer. There's been lots of interpretations. Well, is the Pope the current Peter? I'm not Catholic, I don't have to worry about that. But the idea is that faith that Peter demonstrates poorly on a regular basis. Remember, Jesus called him Satan at one point. Peter still wants life to be like he understands it. As you read through the New Testament in the book of Acts, and then with some of Paul's writing and in Peter's own writing, you can see Peter wrestling with the fact that the world makes sense to him in this way, and God is doing something different. Deep down, Peter, like the rest of us, wants to be God and not be subject to God. It's a challenge. But Jesus said, I'm going to build my church upon you, Peter. Now we're going to fast forward. Been a lot of interesting things with Peter. And now it's the night before Jesus is going to get killed. Peter's in the room. They're all in the room, including Judas Iscariot. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift each of you like wheat. But I have pleaded in prayer for you, Simon, that your faith should not fail. Look at this next sentence. So when you have repented, now why would you need to repent? Well, it's because you failed. Jesus prayed that he won't fail, but he's going to fail. But it's not going to be the end of the story. When you have repented and turned to me again, strengthen your brothers. That's your role, Peter. Encourage the rest of the group. Tell them what you've been through. Tell them what you believe. Tell them what you know. Peter said, Lord, I'm ready to go to prison with you and even to die with you. And Jesus said, Peter, you're full of crap. Let me tell you something. Before the rooster crows tomorrow morning, you will deny 3 times that you even know me. Peter's all offended, goes through the whole bit. We'll read out ahead to this. So they arrested him, Jesus, and led him to the high priest's home. This is after Peter had grabbed his sword and sliced off Malchus's ear, and then Peter watched as Jesus healed him. And Peter followed at a distance because it was terrifying. The guards lit a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat around it, and Peter joined them there. A servant girl noticed him in the firelight and began staring at him. That, a little awkward. I was at a restaurant with a friend this week, and the cook yelled out and said, "Hey, you from New York?" And I looked. I'm not wearing any Yankees gear. So what? I said, "Yeah, how'd you know that?" He says, "The look." A lot of that in Tucson. He said, "Are you a Yankees fan?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I'm a Red Sox fan, but I'm not going to ruin your food." Thank you, I appreciate it. But when someone's just staring at you because of the way you look, in New York, I blend right in. Not so much at a Chinese restaurant, it turns out. Finally, she said, this man was one of Jesus' followers. So Jesus is going through the trial. He's getting disrespected all over the place. And Peter is sitting there, and he realizes the girl's staring at him. And then she calls him out. "Hey, the guy that's getting in trouble is going to be executed. You're with him, that guy." And Peter denied it. "Woman," he said, "I don't even know him." But after a while, someone else looked at him and said, "You must be one of them." The look. "No, man, I'm not," Peter retorted. Remember what Jesus said 3 times? And Peter said, "No, I'm willing to die for you. Go to prison for you." And Jesus said, No, you're not. About an hour later, it's been a long hour, someone else insisted, "This must be one of them because he is Galilean too." But Peter said, "Man, I don't know what you were talking about." And immediately, while he was still speaking, the rooster crowed, which is what Jesus said, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter was all offended. At that moment, the Lord turned and looked at Peter. So just the previous meal in the evening, Jesus said, "Hey, Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times, but after you repent and come back, I prayed that your role will be to strengthen your brothers." And Peter said, "That's ridiculous, never going to happen." Well, then it happens. And when the rooster crows, after the 3rd time, Peter looks up and there's Jesus walking across the courtyard, all bloody probably, and they lock eyes. Peter's thought probably wasn't, "Hey, Jesus, you were right." It was probably incredible shame, guilt. At that moment, the Lord turned and looked at Peter. Suddenly, the Lord's words flashed through Peter's mind. "Before the rooster crows tomorrow morning, you will deny 3 times that you even know me." And Peter left the courtyard, weeping bitterly. So from the moment he met Jesus fishing, to all the adventures they've had, being called Satan, catching a fish with the temple coins in it, all the adventures, Jesus saying this is going to happen. They're going to reject me. I'm going to be beaten. I'm going to suffer. And I'm going to die. But don't go away because in 3 days I'll be back. And Peter said, "No, that can't be. I want my plan, not your plan." And now it looks like you know whose plan it's going to be. But it's completely out of control. And Jesus, he's now denied he even knows Jesus in his moment of Jesus meeting him. And so he just leaves. He's weeping bitterly. Now we're going to fast forward. We're past the resurrection. We're past what we talked about last Sunday with Easter. Later, Jesus appeared again to the disciples beside the Sea of Galilee. Jesus died. They saw him die. And now he's back. This is how it happened. Several of the disciples were there. Simon Peter was there. Thomas, doubting Thomas. I won't see it. I won't believe it until I see it with my own eyes. Nicknamed the twin. Nathanael from Cana in Galilee. Man, that's a description, isn't it? Here's why. Nathanael, the first time he met Jesus, his brother Andrew went up to him and said, "We have met the Lord, this is the Messiah. This is the guy." And Nathanael, instead of being excited, he said, "Where's he from?" He said, "Nazareth." He said, "Nazareth?" exclaimed Nathanael. "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" Well, I would say Boston, some of you would say Yuma, but you just can't really comprehend something good coming from there. So Nathanael gets listed as from Cana in Galilee, not from Nazareth. I just want it clear. I'm not a Nazarene, all right? I'm willing to believe this Jesus stuff. I'm not willing to be besmirched by where I'm from. One time years ago at our old church, somebody came back from their trip to Boston. He brought me a Boston Red Sox hat. I said, "What's this?" He said, "I thought you were a Red Sox fan." You kick people out of church for various reasons. He did not want to be from Nazareth. He is from Cana in Galilee. Or the first miracle of the turning water into wine. The sons of Zebedee, James and John, remember from where we started, and two others. Why not just list them? Give us a hint, give us their names. And then two guys that have no backstory, who cares? Verse 3, Simon Peter said, I'm going fishing. And you know why he's going fishing? Because none of this makes sense to Peter. Because deep down he wants it to make sense. He wants it to be his way. Basic fundamental sin. We want life to be what we want it to be. And Jesus is back. And Peter doesn't know what to do with it. And so Jesus appears and he's gone again. And Peter doesn't know what to do. So you know what he says? Because fundamentally Peter believes the world is based on catching fish. He said, I don't understand any of this. I'm going fishing. We'll come too, they all said, because what else are you going to do? So they went out in the boats, but they caught nothing all night. Ready for this? Jesus speaking the language, remember? First you have to respect someone, then you have to enter into their belief system and speak their language before you can challenge them to something better. So just like the first time. So they went out in the boat, they caught nothing all night. At dawn, Jesus was standing on the beach, but the disciples couldn't see who he was. Just saw, it's the morning light, there's just some guy there. They're frustrated, they don't understand the Jesus thing, they can't catch fish, they're just frustrated. So the guy on the shore called out, fellas, have you caught any fish? No. In our house, you bumped your head. Got 4 other people racing to you asking what happened. I bumped my head. Oh, okay. And then they leave. Oh, somebody want to help me with the blood? You fall down. I don't. We have 3 small children. They fall down a remarkable amount of time. And the house is all tile, so there's some real damage that can be done. One of our kids had a gray tooth and went over to some friend's house. She was there about, 40 seconds. Biffed it. Got a gray tooth until that one falls out. It's not permanent, it's fine. We all rush. What happened? I fell down. What do you mean what happened? You don't want to, there are some questions you don't want to answer. Honey, how was your day at work? Some days the answer is good. Some days it's at least fine. Some days the answer is, don't ask that question. You're a professional fisher person. You've been all night fishing because you're confused. You don't know what else to do. The world makes sense when you're catching fish. Have you caught any fish? No, thanks for asking. They replied. Then he said, if you're Jesus, when you appear at the tomb, Mary doesn't recognize you, thinks you're the gardener. They've heard your voice. Well, at least he's given sermons. I don't know if they've listened, come to think of it. But shouldn't they have just recognized Jesus' voice? He's on the shore. He's yelling out, have you caught any fish? That voice sounds familiar. Nobody said it. Then Jesus said, throw your net on the right-hand side of the boat and you'll get some fish. You've been fishing on the wrong side of the boat. And if you're a fisher person, having some guy on the shore shout out dumb advice isn't helpful. Well, look what they did. We 3-dotted the part where they did this before. So they did. And they couldn't haul in the net because there were so many what? Fish in it. First, Jesus shows respect. And then he meets them and speaks their language. Understands what their belief system is. And only then challenges them to more. Verse 7, the disciple Jesus loved, John. Anybody want to throw out a guess who's writing this? John. Said to Peter, it's the Lord. John's just writing. John wrote this as an old guy. He wrote John, the book of John, as an old guy. He was the patron saint of the church at this point. He was exiled on the island of Patmos near the end of his life because the Romans said, you got to stop talking about Jesus. And he said, I can't stop talking about Jesus. If you were there, you wouldn't have stopped talking about Jesus either. And he's 95 years old, so you can't kill a 95-year-old and have anybody feel good about that. So they exiled him to the island of Patmos, where he did some of this writing, wanted to make sure that we got it. But even as an older gentleman, he still wants us to know, I was the one who recognized Jesus first. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, because he couldn't see, he put on his tunic. That's what you want as a naked Peter, I think, for he had stripped for work, jumped into the water, and headed to shore. The others stayed with the boat, because that's let's be honest, the responsible thing to do. But if you remember with Peter and Jesus, Peter had this whole thing of climbing out of boats in the middle of water. Right? The only other person to ever walk on water was Peter. Storm, Jesus walking. Peter said, if that's you, call me out of the boat. And Peter said, okay, get out of the boat. And Peter gets out of the boat to go to Jesus. And he's walking on the water. And then he realizes, like the Wile E. Coyote, I shouldn't be doing this. And that's when he sinks, and Jesus has to pull him out and say, why do you have so little faith? Getting out of the boat, to me, would be the real act of faith. Once you're floating, why worry about it then? So Peter has a thing where he can't stay in boats when Jesus shows up. They stayed in the boat, pulled the loaded net to the shore. Remember, it was so heavy that they couldn't even lift it, so they're struggling with the net. It's a good problem to have. For they were only about 100 yards from shore. I'm not sure about you. I don't jump into water and swim 300 feet with a bunch of clothes, but Peter was excited. When they got there to shore, they found breakfast waiting for them, fish cooking over a charcoal fire, and some bread. They didn't hate gluten back then. They also had wine with every meal because the water wasn't good. So, there's good and bad of living back there. Bread was a good thing, and there's wine in every meal. There's at least that. I don't know how many of you want fish for breakfast. I love fish. I'm not sure I want to see it at breakfast time. But Jesus is speaking the language. Peter believes that the world is good when there's fish. And so Jesus is cooking fish. He didn't need that. Bring some of the fish you just caught, Jesus said. So Simon and Peter went aboard and dragged the net to the shore. Finally, Peter doing some work. There were 153 large fish, and yet the net hadn't torn. Now come and have some breakfast, Jesus said. You want to know what Jesus did next? He asked Peter 3 different times after breakfast. Jesus said to Peter, do you love me? And Peter said, oh, yeah. And then he asked again, do you love me? And Peter said, yes. Yes, Jesus, I love you. Boy, they really beat him up. I don't think he can hear anymore. And then Jesus asked the 3rd time, Peter, do you love me? And Peter gets offended. Well, you know I love you. And Jesus did not say, I didn't know that you loved me the night of the rooster. Jesus did not say that. But what Jesus just did is 3 times Peter said, I don't love Jesus. I don't even know Jesus. 3 times. And then the rooster crowed and Peter felt terrible. And now Jesus is back. And 3 times he said to Peter, do you love me? Yes. So 3 times Peter got to say, I do love you, Jesus, face to face. I do love you, Jesus. See, the center of the story, this is the center of the Bible, a little bit past. But this is the center of the story. This is the crux. This is where it all turns. Because the beginning of the Bible, the first couple of pages of Genesis, is that thing where we want to be God. We don't want it God's way. The snake shows up, not that unusual here in Tucson, and asks the question. That would freak me out a little bit. Do you want to be like God? And Eve says, yeah. Adam joins right in, because that's the basic sin. And in the end of the book, the last page, John wrote the book of Revelation. St. John, the one who recognized Jesus. The last page is that it's all right again. There was the one tree in the Garden of Eden. In heaven, there's 2 trees. And right between them is this perfect flowing water. Oh, it all comes back even better. So the beginning is where we want to be God. The end is where God wins. But the middle is where it all turns. Good Friday. The forgiveness available to us that makes the relationship work again, because we choose against God. We spend our lives choosing against God. And on Good Friday, Jesus lets us have another opportunity. So how do we respond? My request is this. Pick up a Bible. It's on your phone. And read. And don't just, you can start at the beginning if you want to. We have some people trying to do the chronological Bible where you read through it. And I pray for them. There will be parts where, and I'm a minister, right? I've read through the Bible a lot. I get excited about this stuff. I'm thinking, oh man, I got to explain that to them. So don't start there necessarily. Start in the New Testament with the book of Matthew. You know who Matthew was writing to? Matthew was there. He's a tax collector. Tax collectors collecting taxes from their own people to send them off to Rome, because that's where the money was. Didn't really believe God was doing anything, so why not? Might as well make a dollar. And then Jesus came along, and Matthew said, well, maybe God is doing something. And he He walked away from the money, and he wrote down, and he's trying to help everybody understand. You see how Jesus comes out of the Old Testament promise of the Savior? That's what Matthew is doing. So Matthew is writing to people who really know the Old Testament. And then Mark is fast. It seems to me he's telling the stories of Peter. Impulsive Peter. And Peter was very impulsive. He jumps right in. There's no baby stories because Peter didn't know Jesus when he was a baby. My friend Kyle, I love Kyle. Met when we were in college. His baby stories, I don't think he was born. I wasn't there. But I can tell you some great Kyle stories. That's what Peter does with Jesus in the book of Mark. And Mark was writing them down as Peter was telling the stories. Dr. Luke, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Luke wasn't there for the Jesus part. He met Paul, who met Jesus on the road to Damascus after Jesus was already resurrected. So Luke didn't even meet Jesus. But he was darn curious. And so he went and interviewed everybody. That's why the book of Luke has the Mary stories. Read through Luke, and what you see is mom talking about her firstborn. She knows all the details. Moms remember that first one. Hopefully remembered the others, but they really remember the first one. As you read through the book of Luke, you will see Mary's details. And then he wrote the book of Acts. In the first half, he's telling what happened, and then the second half, he starts using the word we because he joined in. And then John, who was there, he was poetic, and he used the water and light and love, and he talked about in very poetic terms. And he was an old guy, and he wanted to make sure the rest of us got it before he died, and so he wrote it down. And as you read the rest of the New Testament, a lot of it is written from the Apostle Paul, who didn't want to believe, but then met Jesus and believed. Jesus said, "Why are you persecuting me?" And Paul said, "Well, this is awkward. I didn't think you were real. I'll stop." He started planting churches, and he wrote books. And then near the end of the New Testament, as you're reading through, you'll get to what Peter wrote. Peter wrote 2 books, the New Testament. 1, 2 Peter. Wrote him to the churches, just like Paul did. You remember what Jesus said about Peter? "Now I say that you are Peter," which means rock. "Upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it." Here's what Peter wrote. "And now God is building you." Remember Jesus said, when you come back, wants you to strengthen your brothers and sisters. Peter wrote, "And now God is building you as living stones into his spiritual temple. What's more, you are God's holy priests, who offer the spiritual sacrifices that please him because of Jesus Christ." And back in the day, my job was to have the sacrifice system. But once Jesus dies, you don't need to kill a goat to wash away the sin, because the blood of Jesus already did that. So now we're all priests. If you believe, it's called the priesthood of believers. So I have a specific role that you get direct access to. And our spiritual sacrifices: praying, loving, reading the Bible. "For you are a chosen people. You are a kingdom of priests, God's holy nation, his very own possession. This is so you can show others the goodness of God, for he called you out of the darkness into his wonderful light." That's what Peter wrote. Show others the goodness of God. Anybody recognize the goodness of God more than Peter? As you read through Acts, you know what you're going to find Peter doing? Dumb stuff. Want to take a nap. He's at a friend's house. Got a vision. He should go see Cornelius, who was a Roman army official. And he walked into Cornelius' house, and Peter was Jewish, and being ritually clean was important to him, doing things right. And he walked into Cornelius' house, who was a Roman, kind of pagan. And Cornelius wanted to talk to Peter. So Peter walked in, and Peter's opening line was, "I shouldn't be here with you losers, but what do you want?" Peter hasn't made much progress, but Peter knows the goodness of God. Our neighbors, we moved into Oro Valley recently, and our neighbors don't like children. They've been very clear, it's not personal. It's not our kids they don't like, it's all children they don't like. So we had a discussion over the back fence. We were going to put our trampoline beside the house, but it didn't really fit. We're going to take out a tree, so we put it in the backyard because you know what? It's our backyard. And they said, "Well, we can't sleep. We need to go to bed early because of work." And again, remember, we don't like children, and yours are all gleeful and happy, and it's just killing us. And I said to him, "Do you remember being a kid making that much noise?" And he basically said, "I don't think I was that happy as a kid." Well, it's working out for you. But Sunday after church, we went home, we took down our trampoline, we put it to the side, and sometime this week I'll have to, I don't know if I have to remove the tree or just chop off and make it naked on one side. The Apostle Paul, who met Jesus after the resurrection. Paul, why are you persecuting me? Jesus said. He said, well, it's awkward. I didn't know you were real. I'll stop. Paul wrote, as much as it is up to you, live peacefully with your neighbors. So it means you're not responsible for them. If they're complete morons, there's nothing you could do. But as far as it's up to you. So we moved the trampoline to the side, and on Monday I went out, and on my car there was a note that said thanks. And then the missus, who had been pulling up, and if we were out, she would start closing the garage door, get out of her car and run in, ducking under the door. I'm getting the impression you don't want to talk to us. Friday, she saw me and she came over and she shook my hands, said thanks. As much as it's up to you, live peacefully with your neighbors. Show them the goodness of God because we have first seen the goodness of God. We love others because we were first loved by God. You know, we can't control what happens, but we can control our response, which I don't know about you, I find very disappointing. We can't control what happens, but we can control our response. So read. Pick it up in the New Testament and read. Read like a living stone. Read the book, the Bible, like a chosen people, because we are. And we'll finish right here. I know you want to be God. Deep down, I do too. God, if you would just do this. But he doesn't. He does what makes sense. God does what we would do if we knew what God did. I know that would make your brain hurt. God does what we would do if we knew what God knew, because we only know what we know. That's why Good Friday happened, because we're not God. It's the eternal struggle. It'll end someday, but until then, it's the eternal struggle. Repent and be forgiven, and know that Jesus is alive. Would you pray with me?